And who am I? That's not a secret I'll never tell. You know you love me. XOXO.
Bish, I'm back. This frog just got resurrected like J-Man on Easter. Long time no see. How the world has changed since our last post, and for the Hoedowns who contacted me during that time, thank you. This frog is feeling much better now. Now on to today's topic. Are you tired of arguing with K-pop haters? Are you tired of not getting them? Of being angry? Of canceling people because you don't have similar taste? Well then, today's your day. Today's thought exercise is titled, How to Deal with K-pop Haters, Understanding and Remaining Unbothered. Please wash hands on entry. This thought exercise was loosely inspired by Shallon Lester and Klein, and is a two-part series. The second part will dive in deep with articles, research and academic receipts, to get to the bottom of some of these attacks and stereotypes leveled against K-pop. I'm working hard on it right now, but in this first part, I will be offering my 3 rules for understanding and remaining unfazed by K-pop haters. Some of you will say, Kermie, I don't want to understand the haters. That's fine. This video is for critical thinkers that do. Now let's get to the first of my 3 most basic rules. First, we must address that people are allowed to hate K-pop, and if they do, I could completely understand why. From the outside looking in, to the untrained eye, the culture around K-pop could appear quite toxic, creepy and cultish. Some K-pop fans will admit that out of their own mouths. Having said that, as fans we focus on the positives, but it's completely understandable why a person may choose to dislike or feel alienated by K-pop and the community online surrounding it. Adding on to the point of people being allowed to dislike K-pop, the infamous legacy of 90s pop bands has already predisposed certain groups to shunning K-pop altogether, and Korea's extreme interpretation of this legacy is found by some to be downright disturbing. There are plenty of people who don't care for K-pop's inorganic nature, how these groups are so surgically crafted and curated in such a clinical fashion, all for the purpose of profit. They aren't impressed by it, but more importantly, they feel like they've seen it all before. In the 1990s, that is. That tends to make them very dismissive of the whole movement. It's not taken seriously because it's often seen as a fad that will not last the test of time. If those groups didn't like artificially manufactured boy bands or girl bands growing up in the 90s, why would they change their minds now? I assume that many people are simply tolerating K-pop as a mild irritation, playing the waiting game, waiting for this reimagining of 90s pop on steroids to go away, like it did the first time. This person hates K-pop, how can this be? They're wrong. I'm gonna convert them by spamming them with K-pop until we find a song they like. No, reality checks, it's not everybody can be converted to liking K-pop. Let the locals have their own tastes. And I see this term, locals, being used by stans to insult non-K-pop fans, which I find funny, because last time I checked, it wasn't a crime to simply be a product of your own culture. As I said, there are certain elements of K-pop culture that skeptics find disturbing, but are quite pedestrian to Koreans, and outsiders are perfectly allowed to reject those things, without being considered xenophobic. That's because in Western culture, especially in the music industry, there are many things considered pedestrian, that would be viewed as bizarre and rejected by Koreans. This is all to say that cultural differences do exist, and culture clashes are inevitable. Certain things will be lost in translation for some people, and that's okay. It doesn't necessarily make them bigots. Not in my opinion, at least. Does Shannon Lester's behavior show what the American media really thinks about K-pop? LOL. People like Shallon Lester are dangerous. They are so charismatic and entertaining that you almost don't notice their relationship with facts is non-existent. She's getting exposed left and right in these YouTube streets. I'll definitely admit her entertainment value. That's the only compliment she'll get. The thing with Shallon is, she's not just some troll on Twitter, she's from the media class. She was editor for a major US publication, with connections in publishing and American media. Frankly, being provocative has served her well. If other editors are sitting at their desks kikiing over coffee while sharing these kinds of opinions, it just makes it all the more clearer the uphill struggle K-pop has and will have, to gain visibility, legitimacy, and most importantly, staying power, in mainstream media and pop culture. Sadly, many K-pop fans think it won't be a mainstay for this reason. Shallon can have her opinion, roast away, I don't care. She doesn't have to find them masculine or attractive. They don't have to find her attractive either. It's a two-way street. Let's not act like this isn't a common critique. Lack of masculinity is usually the first weapon thrown at any boy band. But male androgyny in K-pop is a culture shock that isn't to everyone's taste, I'll admit that, and makes K-pop extra vulnerable to these kind of critiques. To be honest, K-pop fans should be impervious to these comments by now. This frog certainly is. You can visibly see it's a culture shock for her. She even says the words, I don't get it.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Her method of dealing with her culture shock was by trying, and failing, to make a funny roast of it. As usual, you were doing too much. It just became unfunny. I'm still not gonna jump out the window and brand her as xenophobic bigot just because she's not attracted to certain beauty standards. It's definitely impolite, but it's also factual that millions of people are not attracted to that beauty standard, which is fine, because millions of other people are. It doesn't make the ones who aren't bigoted. Also, something light-hearted is the whole. It's so racist that you can't tell them apart. Complaint from fans. When right here on YouTube, you'll find videos with millions of views, with Koreans saying the exact same thing about white and black celebrities. Cultural relativism is a two-way street. Sometimes what people mislabel as racist or xenophobic is really just cultural relativism. And to end, we aren't really dragging people today, but let's get in a quick one, because sis, you really need to check your roots and lip filler before you talk about Jimin's highlights, because they're in desperate need of review. Oh, and enjoy that tumbling sub count. #T. That's all I have to say for now. I'll be digging much deeper playing devil's advocate in my next video. It might ruffle a few feathers. We're gonna touch some touchy subjects, but I'm bringing receipts so hopefully people won't want to start a riot. Until then, ciao.